بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. Inshallah, today, brothers and sisters, we are discussing the essential uh, value of consultation and mashurah in Islam, and it being one of the qualities of success for anyone who wants to make a success out of their life, for themselves and for all those who are connected and linked to them. This topic, of course, is related to the one before it, which was kitmanu sir, concealing of one's private affairs. So this is dhikrul mashurati fi awqati darura, that when it is needed and when there are important matters to discuss which impacts one's life, future decisions, then it becomes necessary and essential to mention and make a mashura and discuss this with others. But what are the principles around this? What are the methodologies around this? What are the conditions around this? This is what the discussion is about. So as we know, Hafiz ibn Hibban, every chapter he starts with a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in support of his title, and here he brings the hadith of Rasulullah, al-mustasharu mu'tamanun, that the one whose counsel is sought, that person is entrusted, he's in trust. So that person has responsibility over his shoulder to be trustworthy. Hafiz ibn Hibban rahimahullah then explains that when these situations arise, when a person needs to make mashura, whether it be for himself, for his children, for his work, marriage, relationships, career, anything major which impacts him and those around him and his future, then this should be made, but it should be made with a certain type of person. And he gives three qualities of that person. That he needs to be dayyin, religious, he has to have taqwa yani. Number two, aqil, he should be an intelligent, wise person, he should not be a fool. And number three, he should be waddan, he should be someone who has good will for you and not someone who harbors ill will towards you. Because if a person is not religious, then khanahu, he would not be true in his and sincere in his or her advice to you. Number two, if somebody is not intelligent, they might be religious and they might have good will for you, but they might not have the necessary understanding or intellect to advise you. They might advise you with the wrong things. And number three, that the same person should also be someone who bears goodwill towards you, so would keep your interest in mind when advising you. And he says, this is the responsibility of the one who is consulting, that he or she needs to make sure that the person they are consulting with has these three qualities. It's not just anyone and everyone he picks off from the street or he meets at a place and he divulges he bears his heart and he divulges his plans and his ideas and his intentions and asks for mashura on this. This should be done in a thoughtful process. Hafiz ibn Hibban then very beautifully mentions how there are three types of people when it comes to mashura. First of all, he says, "An husnul mashura to nisful amr," that making a good consultation is half of all matters, is the solution to half of all issues. If you and I, he's saying, can do a good, thoughtful process of a consultative process with various people, as he just mentioned the qualities of these people, then half of the success of that issue, that problem is hidden in this good mashura. The solution of all, half of the solution of all our issues are in this. The other half could be whatever effort, it could be, whatever it could be. But half of it is in doing a good, well-grounded, consultative mashura. So he mentions that there are three kinds of people. There's the one who is tam, the well-rounded individual. Who is this well-rounded individual? This person has a lot of experience in life themselves. They have experienced a lot, and they consult in all matters. They are experienced as well as they consult. So this is a complete individual. This individual will very rarely make errors. This individual will rarely regret. This individual will have success in in most things, if not all things that they undertake. Then he mentions the second person is naqis, deficient. As we say, adura, half-baked. Why? That this person is inexperienced. They don't have experience. Perhaps they are young, perhaps they have never experienced this. It's the first time they are embarking on this venture of theirs, so they have no experience in it. But they fill that inexperience or those gaps with a lot of consultation. So they are naqis. They don't have the experience, but they cover that weakness by consulting. He says the third person is la shay, has no, is unfortunate and is a loser basically. And that person is the inexperienced person who refuses to consult. The inexperienced person who refuses to consult. Now, brothers and sisters, we must remember consultation and mashura is not something that is, okay in Islam, or something that is there, or something which could or could not be done. No, it's something which has very high value in Islam. In fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran mentions mashura in various places. He mentions it in praising the Sahaba, that washawirhum wa amruhum shura bainahum, that the Sahaba were such that whenever they had to do something, they would sit and consult each other on this. Now, Allah praises them. Further to that, and this should be highlighted, that Allah Jalla Jalaluhu instructs Muhammadur Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the Nabi of Allah who is receiving wahi and revelation, doesn't need to make mashura, is getting directives and instructions from Allah Himself. But Allah is instructing this Nabi of his, Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, that وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ, when you are intending something, then consult with the Sahaba. This was for your benefit and my benefit, that through this instruction Allah could make, and Allah could show that the last person who needs mashura is the Nabi of Allah, but I am commanding him to make mashura to show you that it is, Allah is establishing a sunnah practice as part of the directive of the Quran. I'll repeat that. Allah is establishing a sunnah prophetic practice through the instruction of the Quran, which not many sunnah are like this. Not many sunnah fit this category. And this is sunnah because Allah told Rasulullah in the Quran to do it, to show that this is a sunnah practice and all should follow this practice. Continuing in this aspect, Hafiz ibn Hibban rahimahullah mentions some principles around mashura. He says, as you remember, al-mustasharu mu'tamanun, then the one who is consulted should be trustworthy with his advice. وَلَيْسَ بِضَامٍ, but this person is not responsible for the result and the outcome. This is also something we should know, specifically for younger people when they make mashura with their parents, when they make mashura with others, with their teachers. and then Allah forbid, la qaddarallah, khuda na khasta, it doesn't turn out well. Then they turn back and they say, yes, this was the mashura that was given to me. And they blame their parents and they blame their teachers and they blame others. Remember, our responsibility is to make mashura. And Allah's blessings is in mashura. Allah's guidance is in mashura. And if a person makes mashura and with that istikhara and with that gives out sadaqah, and then after some time thoughtfully makes a decision, if the decision does not turn out as they liked and turned out to be negative, in that we believe as Muslims is goodness for us. In that is goodness for us. And that was something which was muqaddar and written. For us to learn something, we had to take that route. So some people think, for example, before they get married, they make mashura, they make istikhara, they do all the things, and everything seems positive, and then they get married, and then after some time it seems like it's not working out. And then they say, but we did the mashura and we did the istikhara, and why was it all so positive? So, yani in that instant, it was positive for us because this is what Allah destined, and Allah intended for us to go through a certain test and a certain thing for us to come out more knowledgeable, more understanding, and more wise. And that is in the hukam of Allah. We don't question the process. The process is, as long as we fulfilling the rights, the result is up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And more often than not, I will add here as well, 9 out of 10 times, if a person follows the mashura, istikhara, sadaqah, they will be protected, they will have blessings in their decisions, and the outcome will be good. This is something which Allah takes on himself. That's why another hadith mentions, ma khaba man istashar. The one who makes a habit of consulting and making mashura with others, ma khab, will never be unfortunate, will never be in destruction. Another saying says, ma nadima man istashar. The one who makes a habit of consulting with others will not regret. And this is where Islam teaches us that we should not be impulsive and jump to decisions and jump to judgments before we discuss it with many people around us. So, for example, for our benefit, let's make a rule in our life. When it comes to major aspects in our life, we will discuss it with at least 5 people. One being our elders of the family, someone who we know, someone who we trust, someone, whether our parents, uncles, aunties, whoever it is, someone who we look up to, number 1. Number 2, some knowledgeable people in the community, ulama, knowledgeable people, righteous people, number 2. Number 3, people of the industry, people of the field, people of the science. So if you want to start a venture, for example, a person wants to invest, for example, so he will not go and speak to, for example, he wants to invest in property. He will not go and ask, and I'm just using this as an example, he will not ask the mechanic whose life is around cars, fixing up of the vehicles, and then about investment. If the person hasn't invested, he will find someone who is in that field, in that science, in that area, and consult with him. Number 4, a sincere, intelligent friend who bears goodwill to us. And number 5, any other person who fits those 3 conditions that were spoken about at the beginning. So like this, a person would save himself and herself from a lot of heartache, lot of confusion, lot of regret. Sometimes decisions are made and 3-4 years, a pathway is taken, and then a person thinks, oh, was this the right thing? Whether in marriage, whether in study, whether in education, whether in relationship, whatever, a person makes mashura and then takes a certain path. And if they get the wrong mashura, or they don't make enough mashura, or they don't make mashura, or they jump to an idea without making it, then that, subhanallah, sets them onto a trajectory and a path which after many years they realize perhaps it wasn't the right thing. Whereas the one who makes mashura, and we see it in sometimes people, that everything they do works out for them. Every step they take is just increasing them, is taking them in one direction. They very rarely regret. They very rarely have to, backstep. They very rarely have to withdraw, change path, change course. And why is this? This is because they very thoughtfully take the consultation of people before they embark on whatever they are embarking. So it's a very clear, thoughtful process. And our life and our time that we have is very limited in the dunya for us to lose years in the wrong thing, in the wrong time, in the wrong, subhanallah. Especially if we are working for our akhirah, every minute, every day, every year counts. It's like the melting of an ice block, which every one moment is receding and melting away. So may Allah grant us the tawfiq to be such people who take this principle to heart and find and understand how important it is to a successful life. Then Hafiz ibn Hibban mentioned some qualities of the mustashir, the one who is taking mashwara. He does so to protect himself from his own ego, from making mistakes, because we are human beings, right? When we make decisions, most of the time, there's a certain element of emotion in it. Whether we are buying something, whether we are cutting off some relationship, whether we are, whatever way we are going, positive or negative, there is always some emotion connected to it. And when we make mashura, that separates, it helps us separate our emotion from the actual issue. And the next person, the third person, whether it's our father, mother, senior person, our friend, our shaykh at our masjid, he gives us a different perspective, and it opens our heart and it opens our mind that, you know what, I need to consider it from this angle and this angle and this angle. And it protects him or her from their ego and from making mistakes. The next thing is that mashura is a mashura, and it's not binding like a wajib or fard or an instruction of the Quran. In fact, we find some examples in the hadith when Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam advises the Sahaba, and they ask the question, Ya Nabi Allah, is this an instruction from you, or is this an advice from you? Is this an instruction or an advice? Then Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says it's just an advice. Then the Sahabi either accepts the mashura or gives an explanation as to why something else, in his opinion, would be more considerable. Subhanallah. So it's not binding in that sense. However, I would like to mention one point here and maybe spend about a minute or so on it. And this is that aspect of, as Muslims, if we really want to be successful servants of Allah, we want to protect ourselves from spiritual illnesses, spiritual maladies, pride, arrogance, love of dunya, love of status, coveting, desiring the things of this world, lust, and so many other things, other illnesses and diseases, destructive ones which are out there. Islam's heritage was always such that a person would take the advice of a senior and accept that advice. When a person finds that person who he believes to have knowledge, believes to have goodwill for him, believes to be a thoughtful and intelligent person, believes to be a religious person, he attaches himself to this person and takes the advice, whether it's a sheikh, whether it's a mentor, you want to call it, whether it's whatever, then whatever I want to do, I will make mashura with this person. And even if it's against my ego, against what I want, but if it is the advice that is coming, this is the advice I'm going to accept. And this is only in Islamic teaching. Other teachings are opposite. You are your own person. You do as you wish. You do as you like. And there is no aspect of, this uh, keeping yourself tabi', as we say, to the advice or to the instruction of those in authority over you. We have it if we have an amir in a jama'ah. Everyone in the jama'ah, in the group, is tabi' of the amir. In the masjid, everyone is tabi', is following the imam. No one, imam says Allahu Akbar, no one says, no, I think I'll stand. Or imam says Sami Allahu liman hamida, you say, no, you know what, you carry on with Sami Allahu liman hamida, I'll remain here in ruku. That's not the mizaj, it's not the teaching of Islam. The teaching of Islam is وَفَوْقَ كُلِّ ذِي عِلْمٍ عَلِيمٍ, that on top of every one of us, no matter how senior we might be, no matter how experienced we might be, no matter how knowledgeable we might be, no matter how pious we might be, no matter how much ability and skills we might have, there is always somebody more senior, more knowledgeable, more righteous, more religious, more capable than myself, who I need to turn to get advice from, to get guidance from, a murshid, someone to advise me. And this will protect me from the evil of my nafs. Because the nafs is a very subtle thing, very dangerous aspect, which sometimes we, as the carriers of the nafs, are also duped and are also tricked by it. It's like and the makar and fareb of the nafs can be spotted by somebody else, who then can point it out to you. Are you sure this is the right decision you are thinking? Is it the right time for you? Are you doing this for self-interest? Are you sincere in this? So all these questions, these advices, these thoughtful things make a person think twice and separates that emotion from the actual matter. There is a lot of barakah, a lot of value in this. We need to pass it over to our children even, that my beloved son, daughter, you don't just buy. You want to buy something, you come and discuss it with me. It's your money, yes. It's your money, it's your spending, it's your ED, it's your whatever. But when you want to, just come and discuss it. What you want to buy, how much you want to spend. Perhaps I can give you some ideas of how you can purchase it, how you can save for it, or is it the right time for you, maybe not the right time. This is something which should be taught, because by nature the nafs doesn't like to be held. It likes freedom, it likes to be left to do as it wishes. But in there is regret to be found. In there is mistakes. In there is going down the wrong path without even knowing it. May Allah grant us that. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, Al-mu'minun hayyinun layyinun, or Al-mu'minu kal-jamal al-anif, that the mu'min, true believer, is like a tame camel, that whichever direction you take him, he's tabedar, he or she follows. And this is that aspect, to separate our ego and for what is good for us, for where is. Now, of course, we don't again just make mashura with anyone and everyone at this level. This is a bit of a higher level I'm speaking about. This level, ulama mentioned, we study the ulama, the shuyukh, and we see, as the, if you want to use a medical terminology, we see where the blood type matches. where the blood type matches, because not every message of every knowledgeable person, you know, connects to us, or the message is not relevant to us. But sometimes there is just like a connection, and the blood type meets, and that is the kind of, you know, person you say, okay, I inshallah can take, I find benefit in following the advices of this person, and I will, you know, uh, connect up with that person. Non-Muslims even write about this. Non-Muslims, there's a famous book called Mastery. One whole chapter is dedicated to this whole science of, if you really want to become exceptional, the 1% or 2% of the world which becomes accomplished at what they do, find for yourself a mentor, become an apprentice, a student, a shagird of someone who knows more than you, and shadow that person, learn from them, take guidance from them, consult with them, and you yourself will then achieve that level. These are non-Muslims which are writing about the importance of this. Imagine for Islam, for Muslims, if a person wants to raise their level of iman, their level of spirituality, their level of connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and be successful in all elements of their life, how much more does this not fit on them? Hafiz ibn Hibban goes on to mention another aspect. He says that when giving advice, now he speaks about giving advice. He says, don't be that person. Beautifully, he brings a poem, and I'll share this poem. He says, لا تسبقن الناس بالرأي والتأيد فإنك إن تعجل إلى القول تزلل. Don't be that person who rushes to give advice. That when somebody comes into the room, into the gathering, and says, you know what, I've got this issue, what do you guys think about it? Don't be the one who jumps first to give. And sometimes that's the nafs, you know, pushes us or tickles. No, you know, mention, say what you know. You got this experience, you got that, and you know this. And so, you know, you feel like you are the best qualified to say. And, or, you know, I also went through the same thing, and you might well have gone through something similar, and you might well know about that aspect. But he says, La tasbiqanna ar-ra'y, don't rush to give an opinion. What ta'id? Just sit back a little bit. Because in ta'jal ila al-qawli tazlal, if you jump to answer, if you rush to answer, it is highly possible that you will actually miss the point and say the wrong thing. Does that mean you shouldn't advise? No. He says in the next misra, in the next part of the poem, وَلَكِنْ تَصَفَّحْ رَأْيَ مَنْ كَانَ حَاضِرًا. He says, but rather listen to everybody else's opinion, everybody else's advice on the matter. وَقُلْ بَعْدَهُمْ رِسْلًا وَبِالْحَقِّ فَعْمَلْ. And if there has been something that has not been said, or some angle that has not been mentioned that you are aware of, or you've taken everything together, you've considered and you've understood the different angles, and you have got some understanding, now speak at the end after everybody. وَبِالْحَقِّ فَعْمَلْ. And take your time. Risla, speak after everyone. Risla, taking your time. وَبِالْحَقِّ فَعْمَلْ. And bring out the matter and make sure that then to you know, to practice on it and do so. So this is a very beautiful, you know, this, especially nowadays, there's a lot of, everyone becomes a doctor, everyone becomes an alim and mufti whenever things are happening. Now, today's time also, mashallah, a lot of WhatsApp muftis and WhatsApp doctors, you know, and everyone's got an opinion about everything, jumping, unsolicited advice sometimes. No one is even asking for our advice. But we say, you know what? I think you should do this. I think this is the right thing. I think this is the decision you should make. Taking that decision upon ourselves to hand out advice freely, even if, and jumping to do that is a dangerous game, because we are responsible for ourselves, yes. And if somebody follows us, then we are responsible for them too. Remember, in that sense, man istanna bi sunnatin falahu man istanna bi sunnatin hasana, as the hadith says, whoever starts a good trend, then he gets the reward of everyone who follows him on that trend. And whoever starts a bad trend, then he holds the responsibility and the burden of the sin of everyone that follows that trend. Giving out advice and people following it, is a dangerous business. So that is that aspect of not jumping to give mashurah and jumping to give advice. In conclusion, Hafiz ibn Hibban speaks about some other conditions, that if you are taking advice from somebody, make sure that it's a convenient time for the person that you are taking advice from, in whatever aspect, because that person is doing you a favor, you are not doing them a favor. And number two, you want them to be in a good space, emotionally, mentally. So he says, don't take advice from somebody who is hungry, somebody who needs to relieve themselves in the bathroom, somebody who has an ill-tempered family who is out and about. Now you just stop. And this is very common, brothers and sisters. We need to learn these etiquettes. So whole day and night, we don't think about any mashurah that we want to make. But then we're walking and we see the sheikh walking down the road and we grab him. I just want to make 5-minute mashurah with you. If you want to make a mashurah with the imam of the masjid, with the sheikh, call him, send him a message, make an appointment, as you would with any other person. Go, take a convenient time, sit down and speak to him, or any other knowledgeable person. It's not just on the fly whenever you get chance, and whether the person is available, whether they're not available. So we're looking for like a drive-through kind of a mashura. Remember, if we look for that kind of mashura, that's the mashura we will get. If you look for half-baked mashura, you ask for a half-baked mashura, you will get a half-baked mashura. So to ask for a convenient time, request. Also, he mentioned if someone is in pain, someone who's sick, don't take mashura from that person. That person is not in the condition to give you complete, well-grounded mashura. So be thoughtful in this aspect as well, and request a convenient time to go and present the issue, and then to take the mashura, as I mentioned, of few people, and then to sit thoughtfully and make a decision for what you have come out and what you think is now the best way forward from there. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the understanding of the importance of this aspect of mashura. Wallah, it can save a person from a lot of heartache, a lot of regrets, a lot of mistakes, save a person from reinventing the wheel, save a person from, breaking of relationships, wrong decisions, foolish impulses, so many other things. May Allah grant us this quality. May Allah grant our children this quality. And inshallah, regarding that brings us to the end of this chapter. Next chapter, inshallah, we have is Dhikrul Hathi ala Luzumin Nasihati lil Muslimina Kafa. This also is connected with this particular chapter, as this chapter was connected with the previous one. And this is Hafiz ibn Hibban is moving now to the aspect that a person should, as a believer, as a Muslim, should always have goodwill for others by giving good counsel. So wherever the opportunity arises, a person should not lose the opportunity of giving good counsel, sincere good counsel. And there's a chapter on this as well, that how a person can gain success through this, so the conditions, principles, and issues around this aspect.